addition of revolving accounts and anticipated grant funding, we expect the overall fiscal year 2015 school district operating budget to approximate $56,174,784. And I'm told that the City Council is expected to consider approval of this and other departmental budgets next week. Finally on my list, we get to consideration of PARCC. So the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education is asking districts to consider either continuing with a second year of the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, or PARCC testing, or to return to MCAS testing for the next academic year. The district participated in a limited field test of PARCC assessment this current year. At our May 21st, 2014 School Committee of the Whole meeting last month, I indicated that the district will consider approval of a second year of PARCC testing or a return to MCAS at our June 18th meeting, which is next week. In the intervening month, I encouraged my colleagues and committee members to independently study the arguments for and against continued PARCC testing. In addition to studying online resources, committee members have been discussing the issue with district educational leaders, including the superintendent and his leadership team. In addition, some committee members have attended outside workshops to gather more information. Chris and I attended a workshop sponsored by the Peabody School Committee, which has already voted to return to MCAS testing for next year, while a number of us also attended a workshop hosted by the Massachusetts Association of School Committees. So together and apart, we've become educated on the issue. Next Wednesday, June 18th, 2014, 7 o'clock at the Memorial Building, the committee will hear a presentation from our superintendent and receive a recommendation from the administration on the form of assessment our students will face next school year. And I expect the committee to decide on a path at our meeting next week. This meeting, like all of our meetings, are open to the public. Parents and community members are encouraged to attend. That being said, do you have anything to add on the PARCC decision that we'll be facing next week?
No, just a couple things. We'll continue to pass information on to you. As you can see, there's more coming out from the DESE. And there's actually a couple of parts to this. So one aspect that's really important to remember is that MCAS, as we presently know it, is sunsetting shortly. So it's going to be replaced by something. Whether it's going to be PARCC or it's going to be a new MCAS assessment, it will be replaced by something. So that's coming up on the horizon. So from the standpoint of the technology focus that we have right now around making us capable to take online testing in addition to providing instruction for students in the classroom, we're going to need to be able to do that anyway, because more and more assessment, whether we did our own assessment or we did statewide assessment, is going to require the ability for kids to take stuff online so that we can get much more rapid results. We're all used to waiting for months for MCAS results. The goal is to get it in the hands of teachers while they actually still have the kids so that they can actually do something about it. So I think that's an important part of the process. The other is, there really is two parts to the decision coming up at the end of June. One is K-8, and the other is 9 and 11. No matter what, the 10th graders in Massachusetts will be taking MCAS next year. One of the things that I sent you, I think it was in the last couple of days, made it very clear that they're not sure that they will fund the 9 and 11 at this point, so the primary focus is on the K-8. The other part to this is, once we make a decision at the end of June to submit to the DESE, there will be a second window going into October for districts to make a different decision. We also have to take a look at whether we can do it online completely, or we're going to be taking a look at a pen and pencil version of the PARCC testing as well, because that is available too. So right now, I think what was probably said the other day by Judy is the challenge is Briscoe. And so we need to make some decisions about whether we're going to be able to do it from a technological standpoint or not. But those are the things that we'll talk about next week, make some initial decisions. But if over the course of the summer and into the early fall, there's some data that might suggest that we change our minds, there's a possibility to do that. The only thing they're cautioning is if we don't sign up for PARCC now, they won't necessarily guarantee that we can change our mind in October and then sign up for PARCC. We can go the other way, but we can't necessarily go forward with There is some data that I think you've all seen around the kids' reaction to the PARCC testing, which I think is important. And it actually does mirror some of the anecdotal information we had from kids in Beverly. The kids really enjoyed the PARCC test as a significant departure from MCAS. I think to a certain extent they're probably MCAS'd out at this point, which is why it's time for a new test no matter what we do.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
If I could ask, on next Wednesday's agenda, is there much else on it? Do we anticipate much? Can we keep it reasonably clear so that we can? Because I see we don't start till 7:30 again next week, so.
No, it'll be, with the exception of appointing Michael Collins to the School Building Committee Design Review Board. That's the only other agenda item I foresee having.
Good, thanks.
At this point, I actually invite, we have two people who signed up to speak on this agenda item. If I could have Michael Gendre approach the podium, please.
Actually, will we have Gail Burke?
Okay, all right, so Gail Burke, Ms. Gail Burke, would you please approach the podium? Name and address, please, and again, we could limit your remarks to a few minutes. That would be great.
I'll try to keep it within the 3 minutes. Can I go over a little tiny bit?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Gail Burke. I live at 80 Boyle Street. And I would like to talk a little bit about Common Core and PARCC testing. I believe Common Core is a national curriculum directed by the federal government that has been promoted as setting standards for states rather than setting curriculum. It is education reform funded by billionaire Bill Gates. It has infiltrated public schools while it was still being written. It has no record of success anywhere, but is a huge experiment using children as test subjects. Some of you may know that there is a recognized protocol for writing standards, and the Common Core standards fail to comply with that protocol. In the United States, the principles of standard setting have been clearly spelled out by the American National Standards Institute, ANSI. Common Core fails on all counts. The process of setting standards must be transparent, must involve all interested parties, must not be dominated by a single interest, and must include a process for appeal and revision. The Department of Education and the Gates Foundation were in a hurry and ignored those rules. The Department of Education has accelerated the implementation of common standards in English language arts and mathematics, and the development of common assessments based on those standards. By PARCC and Smarter Balance, which is another test, admission, these standards and assessments will create content for state K-12 curriculum and instructional materials. The department has simply paid others to do that which it is forbidden to do. What is PARCC testing? It is a series of tests being produced by the same companies that have long histories of mistakes and incompetence. Pearson has been known for poor quality items, scoring errors, computer system crashes, and missed deadlines. The chairman of the board of the governors of PARCC is Mitchell Chester, who coincidentally is also chairman of the Board of Education in Massachusetts. He recently gave a speech in Washington, D.C. about how to handle dissenters of Common Core. This could be considered a problem for those cities and towns that are using both Common Core and PARCC. In 2009, Mitchell Chester stated that Common Core standards are not internationally benchmarked. This came from Mitchell Chester. No state should have to compromise their standards. Massachusetts is already #1. Why should we change from MCAS to PARCC? Very troubling is the data collection of private student data. FERPA, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act laws, giving private information to third parties, social security numbers, medical data, home situations, religion, etc. In December 2011, the U.S. Department of Ed changed the regulations governing the release of student data to the private sector without congressional authorization to do so. That includes confidential information. Who is Massachusetts sharing this data with? The state DESE hasn't answered excuse me, which vendors will have access to PARCC data. The Massachusetts Association of School Committees asked that question in May, and the state said it doesn't have that information. Maybe someone on your board could find out more about it. As for the standards not being curriculum, experienced educators know that standards are what drive curriculum. What about STEM education? Science, technology, engineering, and math. Dr. James Milgram, Massachusetts standards developer Dr. Sandra Stotsky were members of the Common Core Validation Committee and refused to sign off on Common Core standards. They agree that the nationalized math standards would fail to prepare students for STEM. Why would superintendents and/or school committees agree to Common Core or PARCC testing? Wasn't that one of the main reasons that the federal government provided over $4 billion in Race to the Top funds? It expected these new standards to improve the critical STEM pipeline. The other, my last fact about Common Core is about, we hear a lot about Common Core preparing students for college. Well, they don't tell you that it does not prepare students for four-year colleges, but only for a two-year college. Unlike MCAS, PARCC has no demonstrable track record, and the financial drain created by constant technology investments and upgrades due to ever-evolving requirements for implementing PARCC testing will increase the stress on the city budget. I urge you, as elected school committee members and the school superintendent, to choose to stay with a successful MCAS assessment and to not squander its success in favor of PARCC, an untested and unproven assessment. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, please.
Good evening.
Name and
My
address.
Michael Gendre. I live at 9 Burkett Ave, Ward 4 in Beverly. I'm speaking to you as a taxpayer, as a concerned citizen living in Beverly for 29 years, and as an educator with over 30 years of experience as adjunct faculty of philosophy and ethics. I'm here to ask the school committee to request the legislature to continue funding MCAS as the student assessment for Massachusetts for a number of reasons. I'm going to list the reasons. Number one, the Commonwealth has the best standards and assessments in the country, as proven by student achievements year after year on the NAEP and TIMSS tests. Number two, Common Core and its aligned tests provided by PARCC have never been piloted until this year, and the results so far are unknown, nor are we aware of the date for the release of those results. Number three, I would like to ask our school committee perhaps a rhetorical question. Did any parent ever come to you to suggest we needed new standards and new tests? I have never once heard any of my friends or neighbors complain that the overall quality of education necessitated new standards in 2010 and a complete overhaul of our approach, of the approach that we had been taking. So point four, in fact, what Massachusetts had with MCAS and the 1993 Education Reform Act worked just fine. Massachusetts showed that on its own, we were entirely capable of developing a high-quality curriculum to teach those standards. But what do we gain from Common Core? Common Core and its nationalized test will take away all that our state has worked very hard to develop and already spent billions or hundreds of millions to implement. From speaking in confidence with various teachers, ELA, math, social studies, I am certain that Common Core will severely curtail our teachers' ability to be creative and flexible with our diverse students. My fifth point. The absolute best experts in the field of education, Dr. Sandra Stotsky, Dr. James Milgram of Stanford University, and Jamie Gass of the Pioneer Institute, categorically affirm that Common Core standards for both ELA and math are not internationally benchmarked, and they're not age appropriate. It is completely unproven that these Common Core standards will in fact prepare our students for a successful outcome of high school, let alone for college readiness. There is here a leap of faith that we need not take. My sixth point. There is an awareness that you and I, and probably BevCamp viewers interested in education, share. It is what is going on statewide and nationwide. On any given day, school districts and entire states are passing legislation against taking nationalized tests, and they're backing out of Common Core in general. On June the 7th, the governor of Oklahoma signed legislation repealing adoption of Common Core. That's less than a week ago. On May the 30th, the governor of South Carolina signed legislation repealing the adoption of Common Core 2. So I understand that there's a debate, and I think we should have a debate, and I invite you to be instrumental in bringing the debate and the information about Common Core. So I would like you, if you could, to invite to Beverly Commissioner Mitchell Chester to a debate and let him present the case for Common Core. Let's hear the pros and the cons. Parents, teachers, and all of us have to hear both sides. My conclusion. What is the rush for every state and our city to go full blast with this initiative? Even Bill Gates, whose foundation bankrolled the entire initiative, even he is asking for a 2-year moratorium on any consequence from the test results. We should do the same thing. We should delay adoption of PARCC and fully consider what we are trading. There should be no rush to fix and replace MCAS if it ain't broken. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gendre. Thank you, Ms. Burke.